Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of this newsletter is going to be put yourself first, not last. Well, I've got two emails I'm going to go through with you today. But before we get into it, I got a quote that I wrote on this topic I want to share with you, and then we're going to jump right into the first guy's email. And the quote says, "In all of your relationships, you must put your needs first. Why? If you're always putting your needs last, then those who you are involved with will treat your needs as if they are not a priority or important. However, putting your needs first does not mean that the other person has to lose or not have their needs met. The purpose of all relationships is that you go there to give. You're there to meet each other's needs, to help each other grow and become more. Relationships thrive through teamwork. Being too compliant and never standing up for yourself and what you want will cause you to attract people into your life who will use you, take advantage of you, and disrespect you. If you don't act like you are deserving of what you want, people will show up in your life and treat you that way. Being honest with yourself and with others will create sexual polarity and attract the right people and repel the wrong ones. You should look at rejection as a tool that reveals incompatibility instead of evidence of your unworthiness or inadequateness." So let's go ahead and jump right in the first guy's email. He says, "Hey Coach, I met a great girl through online dating and the first and second date went awesome. I messed up the third time I saw her. Uh-oh. I went out of my way late at night to see her, and instead of an official date like we should have had at this point, she wanted to come back to my place. I let her take control like I shouldn't have, and I agreed. Well, she wants to come back to your place. Obviously, what do you think's on her mind? She wants some alone time. That can be a good sign." He says, "To make matters worse, my place wasn't okay for us to go back to it, and I didn't find out until I crossed the bridge into my town." So you probably have roommates or something along those lines. This is important logistics-wise, especially for you young guys that are in college and you have roommates. If you're going out on a date, you got to be thinking ahead of time, because in order for sex to happen, you got to have some privacy. And if you don't have a place to go and things are going well, and then you have nowhere to take the girl, you're going to blow really good opportunities. You got to think these things through. What's going to happen if things escalate physically to where you can tell she would hook up with you. He says, "So if I wasn't already making enough obvious effort, I drove her back to her town and we made out in her living room while her parents slept." So she lives at home with her parents. Nice. "The same night I texted her a future plan that we do something like that again at my place." See, you're already starting to pursue and chase. Now you're kind of apologizing, and you're like, "I'm sorry, your highness, let me put you on a pedestal." That's a bad way to go. Now you're apologizing for yourself. And this is not exhibiting any kind of masculine strength. This is exhibiting weakness. These are little things to make you look like inside you don't feel like you're worthy. You don't feel like you're an equal. You don't feel like you're on her level. In other words, you're communicating that, "Wow, you're way out of my league, and God, hopefully you'll want to spend some time with me." Kind of like what you see in most movies. He says, "And then I chased her more when she backed away after this." Yeah, it's like it just starts a whole pattern of pursuing her. Again, because you're driven out of fear, inadequacy, you're not worthy. He said, "I got a second chance after I didn't contact her for a few weeks after Christmas, and I still chased and gave her no chance to chase me like when we first met." Well, when you're over pursuing like that, you're constantly expressing, "I'm not worthy." In other words, the real reason why you're chasing after her is because you're afraid that if you back off that she'll never get in touch with you. He says, "The last time I saw her was last February, and that night," well, here we are in the middle of June, "was last February, and that night ended in disappointment because I had no place for us to go at the end of the date that started early." Once again, you're not planning ahead. You're not thinking these things through. She seemed annoyed at the end of the date. Well, exactly, because it's your job as a man to be the leader. You're supposed to have all these things worked out. She just wants to show up, look hot, and get seduced. But instead, you didn't think things through, and it was a crash and burn. She seemed annoyed at the end of the date and didn't seem to want a ride home, even though I gave her one anyway. And she gave me no tongue in the kiss when I reached for it a couple of times, just like the first reunion date. This tells me that you're lacking sensory acuity. In other words, you can tell that she's not having a good time, and yet you're trying to make a physical move and escalate things when she really doesn't want to be touched. It helps when you read my book 10 to 15 times so you know what to do and how to handle yourself. Then she didn't return a couple of phone calls. Well, when you call a woman, you got to wait for her to call you back. You don't call, then 2 or 3 days later call again. This makes you look weak and pathetic. This makes you look like you've got more invested in her than she has invested in you. And with women, they're either really attracted to you, they're not attracted to you, or they're kind of neutral. And once you move them over to the not attracted or not interested category, it's almost, once they make their mind up about you, it's like put a fork in it, you're done. He says, then she didn't return a couple of phone calls. I even sent this suave, I don't care if you ignore me text. Come on, man. And only communicated lately through very brief texts that I only sent to get another date, and one just to tease her briefly. So now you're really pursuing. You're just, you're like a car that's stuck in the sand, and you're just jamming on the gas thinking that that's going to get you unstuck, and all you end up doing is getting the car more stuck. He says, I don't want to believe that her interest has dropped below 5 on a scale of 1 to 10, and that I can never attract her again with my new knowledge. What do you think of that? At the end of the day, it's now June, so 4 months have gone by. So what does this tell me? You've probably continued to text intermittently every few weeks or once a week or whatever it's been. And the bottom line is you haven't seen her in 4 months. That's the reality of things. And if she was interested, she would have got in touch with you. But it's like you just kept pursuing, probably because you saw too many movies where the guys do this and it actually works. Well, this doesn't work in real life. It makes you look like a stalker. It makes you look weird, and it makes you look creepy. Because if you were living your truth, you wouldn't put up with this. The first time you reached out to a woman and left her a message or a text, you got to think of it as like a game of tennis. You hit the ball over the net, you got to wait for her to hit back. You don't keep hitting balls over to her. All it does is, think about it. It's like, have you ever seen one of those tennis ball machines? It's like some guys, when you act this way, it's almost as if you turn one of those tennis ball machines on high, and it's like, it's just spitting one ball in rapid succession after another, and you're beaming her with these tennis balls. What do you think is going to happen? She's going to run off this fucking tennis court and run away from you. It's just like what happens when you chase a cat. If the cat doesn't want to be held or picked up, it jumps out of your arms. You go and pick it up again, it jumps out again. You start running after it, it hauls ass. It goes through the neighborhood, and it disappears. It wants to get away from you, and it won't come back when you do that. So at the end of the day, the only thing you can really do at this point is nothing. Stop calling her, stop texting her. And if you never hear from her again, you know that you've pretty much ruined it. You've turned her off so much. If I was a betting man, I'd say more than likely, if you stop calling her or texting, you'll probably never hear from her again. I mean, you can look at the fact that you haven't spent any time with her in 4 months. That's the reality of it. You're all hung up on this one girl because you probably don't have any other options. At the end of the day, it takes 2 people who want to participate, and she's unwilling to participate at this point because of the way you have behaved. You constantly behaved as if you didn't deserve her, as if you were unworthy. So I wouldn't call her, wouldn't text her, wouldn't do anything ever again. But if she, for some strange reason, does happen to reach out to you in the future, you've got to assume that she wants to see you and make a date. And next time around, whether it's with her or somebody else, when you go out on a date, you got to make sure that your roommates get the hell out of the way. And, hey, I got a date tonight, so 11, 12 o'clock at night. Or maybe you can text them and say, hey, I'm on my way back with a girl. Please go in your room and turn the lights off so we can have some alone time. You got to think about these things ahead of time, because you show up. I mean, it sounds like the first or second date, you could have definitely hooked up with her, but you didn't think ahead, and she even got irritated with you. She got irritated that you didn't have a way to be alone. That's part of you being the leader. Women don't want to be the leader. They don't want to think of these things. They want you to think of the logistics. It's your job to be chivalrous, open the door, and those kinds of things. At the end of the day, you physically penetrate her with your strength. You don't act like a wet willy going, gee, what do you want to do now? Hey, do you want to go back to your place? It's just a bad way to go, dude. These are the kinds of things that you do when you're young and you're inexperienced. I used to do shit like this when I was in my early 20s, and it didn't end well. But I knew enough back then, and if I was going on a date, I'd tell my roommate, hey, I'm going on a date, so, you know, if you can make yourself scarce. And my buddies, they'd go out with their friends, and that way I could have the house to myself, or the apartment to myself when I was living in an apartment, and I wouldn't have a roommate getting in the way. It's just, you know, it's just common sense. So, like I said, at the end of the day, if she reaches out, make a date, but I'd say more than likely you'll probably never hear from this girl again. And no amount of you calling, texting her, trying to come up with some clever, funny text, you've already turned her off, dude. It's February. You know, that was February. This is June. That's 4 months have gone by and you haven't seen her. It's like, it's pretty fucking obvious. So let's move in to the second guy's email. He says, hey, Corey, my relationship is in dire straits at the moment, and it's now decision time. I've been seeing my partner for 2 years now. She had 1 child from a previous relationship, and I have 3. Last year, she miscarried. I've always tried to be supportive as best I could. It would be nice to have a family together and another baby. Regardless of all this, I find her personality to be moody and very sarcastic and occasionally selfish. Do you really want somebody like that as the mother of your children? But the other thing you got to remember is when a woman is bitchy, it's usually in direct proportion to how you're showing up. If you're being compliant, if you're tolerating her moodiness or her bitchiness, like you gotta tease her in a playful way that lets her know her behavior is inappropriate. When she's real bitchy, you gotta say to her, I just love it. I think it's so sexy when you're in such a nice, happy mood and you're always got that scowl on your face. It just, you know what, I think you just need to fuck me like you hate me. You gotta be playful like that. If she's ever rude and she's crossing the line, you gotta let her know and say, hey, you're being rude and you're being disrespectful right now, and I don't appreciate that. I'm always sweet, and I'm always kind, I'm always loving to you, so don't talk to me that way. If she just keeps talking to you that way, you say, you know what, I'm going to take you home. Or if you're over at her place, say, you know what, I'm going to leave. Why don't you call me when you're in a better mood? Because you got to communicate that you're not going to tolerate that your life is a drama-free zone. If your life is a drama-free zone, that means when you get disrespected, you're out of there. He says, many times I arranged for us to do things together, but she would cancel at the last minute. Well, what does that tell me? Women cancel dates with guys that they don't really want to spend time with. That's what that means. You don't keep making dates when she cancels dates on you. He says, I find this disrespectful as I'm doing my best to make us happy and plan our future. Well, it sounds like you're the only one that's really invested in this relationship. And this is part of, like I was talking about in the quote. She's canceling dates on you. When a woman cancels a date and she doesn't bring up any kind of rescheduling, it's just last minute, oh, hey, I can't make it, sorry. And just your attitude is, oh, hey, sorry to hear that. Well, give me a call when your schedule frees up. And then you don't ever call or text her after that. The problem is you're too emotionally invested in this girl, and when she cancels on you and you call her the next day or the day after that and trying to set another date, you're in essence inviting her to treat you that way again. You've probably heard me say more than once, no one will ever do or say anything to you that you don't invite them to do. When women mistreat you, they get the gift of missing you. That means you walk and you never look back, especially when things aren't going well with somebody like this. He says, in April, we got engaged and we're planning marriage in a few years' time. She does not get along well with my family, and when I asked if we could resolve everything, she removed her ring and handed it to me. Well, that pretty much should tell you everything you need to know. You're thinking about marriage and you're trying to figure out how you can get her and your family to get along, and she's like, hey, here's your fucking ring back. Do you really want to marry somebody who's just like, I think not. She's not that into you, dude. It sounds like she's just kind of going along with things, and you're bullshitting yourself into believing that she's more into you than she really is. And you're just tolerating this kind of behavior and never standing up for yourself. It's like she's bitchy, and you're one of those guys that probably apologizes when she's bitchy. It's just a bad way to go. You're literally saying, please, thank you, may I have another? Have you ever seen Animal House? She now tells me she has issues with me having 3 children and would prefer someone with no kids. Well, she didn't seem to mind it before. That's just the excuse that she's given you. The real reason is that she just has lost respect for you. And when a woman doesn't respect you because you let her walk all over you and mistreat you and talk and cancel dates on you and be nasty to your family, women won't love a guy like that. That's just the reality. We all want somebody who's an equal, who's on the same level. And you are constantly acting like you're treating her like a celebrity. No matter how bad she treats you or berates you, you just keep coming back for more. He says, this is a big problem. I try very hard to make the relationship work, but I feel disrespected, and I feel now it's all about her and there's no compromising. Great. A man who loves himself and respects himself is going to say, fuck this. Hey, at least you got your ring back, dude. Maybe you can cash that thing in and get your money back if it hasn't been too long since you purchased it. Or you can save it for a woman who really does appreciate you. Well, I'll tell you what, you need to change the way that you're showing up. And the way to do that is by reading my book and getting out there and dating and meeting new women, because you're just in a bad place with this girl. He says, I'm also noticing that the relationship is good when she's in a good mood and bad when she's in a bad mood. Well, when you're acting like a leader and you're acting like the man, she's nice and sweet and respectful. But when you're letting her walk all over you and you're not standing up to her, yeah, she becomes bitchy, because what that does, it forces her to move into her masculine. And a feminine woman who's moving into her masculine because her man is acting weak is going to cause her to become bitchy because she doesn't like it. She doesn't want to be the man in the relationship. That's why women get bitchy. He says, many times I felt unloved, resented, and unneeded. She tells me now that she doesn't miss me when I'm not home, and I'm at a loss of what to do, but I feel that ending the relationship may be the best, but I'm not sure. If you can give me some straight-up advice, I would be grateful. I feel a lot of this is my fault, but I don't know why, when trying to talk and resolve matters, she refuses to do so. She also said that her engagement ring was just a piece of jewelry. Oh, that was nice of her. And that this was hurtful for me to hear, as it means much more to me. That's the whole point. You care more about her than she does you, and you're putting up with this crap. He says, overall, I'm finding it very stressful trying to make our relationship work, as no matter what I do, I'm wrong. Any advice would be great. But what you need to do is sit her down and say, look, I love you, I adore you, but you know what? I don't like the way you treat me. I don't like the way you talk to me. And I don't know if you're actually living with her or not, because it kind of sounds, because when you said here that she doesn't miss me when I'm not home, so that kind of tells me if you're actually living with this girl, you need to sit her down and say, look, this is what I want from you. Because right now, the way you're showing up, the way you're treating me, it doesn't work for me. I don't like your bitchy attitude. I don't like you being nasty and unappreciative. And unless things change, we need to go our separate ways. You need to make an effort, and you're not making an effort. I want a woman who's sweet, who's kind, who's loving, and who communicates with me like an adult. Not somebody that gives me the silent treatment or says there's nothing wrong when you got a fucking scowl on your face. That just doesn't work. So if you're not going to make an effort, I can't do this alone. We can only do this together. And if you're unwilling to make the effort, you need to tell me now, because we can break up and I'll go find somebody else who's got a good attitude and who will appreciate me for me. You have to stand up for yourself, because women have to know the only way a woman will really truly love you and respect you as her man is that she has to know that if she pushes you too far, you're going to walk and never look back. And when I say never look back, that means never look back. That means you're never going to call her, never going to text her, you're never going to reach out to her again, you're not going to send happy birthday, you're not going to send Christmas cards. That means she's part of your past, and you don't have any desire to talk to her or have anything to do with her. in your life. That's what I mean by walking away and never looking back. It's when a man gets to a place, he says, I've had enough of this shit. Either your attitude changes or we're done. I'm not going to put up with it. I want somebody who's kind, who's sweet, who's loving, who's drama-free, who gets along with my family, and even if she doesn't like my family, she's going to make the effort. And you ain't making the effort. It's like, why would I want to continue dating you with this attitude? I'm done with it. You either change or I'm going to go find somebody else. I love you. I want to make this work. But, you know, it's like I'm the only one. I feel like I'm the only one here that wants to make the effort. And you got to say that just like I'm saying it now. You got to speak with some passion. And you got to let her know, looking her right in the eye, that you're dead fucking serious about that. And if you don't hear something, if you don't hear words coming out of her mouth that are to your liking, then you're done. And your attitude is, well, you know, give me a call if you change your mind, but don't call me unless you're really willing to make a real effort, because I'm done with this bullshit. I can do better than this. I don't need this crap. And you let her know. And if she says, well, I don't know, I got to think about it, and say, you know what? I'm packing my shit. I'm out of here, and you get in touch with me if you figure it out. Otherwise, when I walk out that door, as far as I'm concerned, you and I are done, and I'm going to set about the task to find a woman who will love me, who will appreciate me, who will communicate with me like an adult. She won't give me the fucking silent treatment, and she'll tell me what's bothering her because she'll want to work things out. Remember, women got to know that if they push you too far, you're going to walk and never look back, and that's your problem. You're not standing up for yourself, just like the guy in the first email. Not standing up for himself. You don't continue to chase after somebody who's rude and disrespectful and blows you off and doesn't return your fucking phone calls, trying to convince them to change your mind. Because just the very nature of doing that is treating them like a celebrity and acting like you're just not worthy to be around them. You're not deserving of respect when you act that way. You don't get what you deserve in life, only what you negotiate. So if you'd like to get my help personally, the quickest way is to book a paid phone, Skype, or email coaching session. You can choose any of those options by going to my website, clicking the products tab at the top of your screen on any page, and just following the instructions. And I will talk to you soon.